G'day. I'm very fortunate to be joined today by the filmmaker of the brand new film Bystanders. Koumbie, how are you today?
I am so good. Thanks. How are
Excellent.
you?
Not too bad at all. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, you're on this cross-country tour right now promoting the film. And what I think is really exciting about that is not just going and doing like the typical press, which I guess this is, but nothing with you and I is ever typical, but also the fact that you're having the opportunity of screening the movie with audiences and then doing Q&As after as well. So thank you so much for carving out some time for us to talk today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really incredible. We're just screened in Ottawa. We're screening in Hamilton tonight, and then we go to Vancouver and Calgary. And yeah, it's a whirlwind, but happy to be here.
I love it. It's like all of the cities that also have CFL teams. I don't know if that's by coincidence or not, but that's great. Okay, so we're gonna get into the film, of course, but I want to start with you. I'm interested in you. How did you become a filmmaker? Like, what was the spark that ignited that interest in yourself to become a filmmaker?
Well, I'll try and tell the fast version. I kind of grew up on sets, so I was like a dancer, and then I told my mom I wanted to be on stage. She got me an agent 'cause she didn't know what that meant, and so I kind of have grown up on sets in the actor world in Nova Scotia, and so I just really wanted to be an actor. That was my focus. And I actually wrote a short film that I was going to act in because I had moved to Toronto and was just waiting by the phone and wasn't ringing. And so I met with someone who I was hoping would direct the piece, and I started going into and then the camera's going to look this way, thinking I was just explaining it as the writer. And she stopped me and was like, you're kind of directing this already. You've already picked the shots. You've already, made all of these decisions. Why aren't you directing it? And it had just never occurred to me. It had never even crossed my mind that was something that I could do or would do or should do. And as soon as that sort of light bulb went off, it just made complete sense. I've always loved every part of the process.
Love that. Now, as a filmmaker, what would you say has been like the biggest challenge that you've experienced in terms of developing your films and bringing the projects to fruition?
Well, to be totally honest, I always say that I'm my own worst enemy because I really do think that anything is possible if you can get out of your own way. And so I think the biggest challenge is, all of the self-doubt or the imposter syndrome or all of those little voices that say, don't share your work, don't send that script, don't. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of myself that I was able to overcome those things to be able to get it into the world.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so of course, the main focus today, we want to talk about this film Bystanders. Now, what was the motivation for you behind that? I've obviously taken a look at the package and gone through it, but I would love for you to tell the story to the people about what motivated you behind this film.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I've always been drawn to character studies. As a actor turned director who's still an actor, actors are my favorite thing to work with and to showcase. So I love the idea of an ensemble piece. I love the idea of a chamber piece. And so those elements were always interesting to me. But then, unfortunately, situations like the situation in Bystanders were actually coming up in our lives. And we had friends who were going through it. We personally had experiences where we didn't know how we were supposed to respond when we found these things out about people in our community. And so it was sort of just something that organically was taking up more and more space in our lives. And we just had a lot of questions. And so we decided to put them into a movie.
Okay. Now, for people who haven't seen it as yet, what is Bystanders about?
So, Bystanders is a group of six childhood friends who have grown up together, and they go for an annual winter weekend away every year. They're now all sort of a little bit more spread out, but they always come together for this winter weekend getaway. And unfortunately, this year is different because they discover that one of them has been accused of a sexual assault. So the question is, what happens when it's not a monster on television or a celebrity or someone that you can walk away from, but what happens when it's actually your brother, your best friend, your roommate, your ex, someone that yeah, feel connected to.
Yeah, and one of the things that really stands out about this film for myself is just the impressive casting. Again, as you mentioned, small intimate group, 6 actors on screen. I would love to hear about the process that you went through to cast them, because again, I don't think you could have put together a better ensemble. I think everybody delivered very strong performances. But we'll dive into that. But first of all, tell me about your casting process.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. I am so, so proud of this cast. I think, we knew that the film would live or die based on the cast, so it was something that we knew we just couldn't go forward unless we found the right folks.
Mhm.
And it's sort of, I actually have a history or a relationship with everyone in the cast. I think Marley was the only one who I was meeting for the first time as part of this process. Taylor obviously is the co-writer who plays Justin, and I knew that he needed to play that role. It's such a difficult role. There's so much nuance, and there had to be sort of this subtlety, and they really had to understand. So who better to do that than the co-writer of the film?
Mhm.
And so that was a really key piece for us, was getting Taylor in that role. And then I knew I wanted folks who had like a live performance background, because it's a chamber piece, and so things are happening directly. It's very, very linear, and so it's like from one moment to the next, from one room to another, things are happening upstairs. It's very, very tight, and I felt like folks who had a live performance background, a theatrical background, would be able to sort of hold all of those pieces together, which they proved me right, which was fabulous. And so we did do like Zoom, we did self tapes and then Zoom callbacks and then a table read. And yeah, we just had to make sure that the chemistry was there.
Well, it was definitely there. I'm watching this film, and you take a step back and you realize that you're watching actors, but the performances were just so believable. It's like maybe these have been actors who have acted with each other several times, and they're just so familiar with each other. But
And not only that, but actually, so there were a few actors in our cast who had, a number of credits and a lot of experience. But there was actually, I think half of them, maybe even four, who it was their first sort of feature film role.
yeah,
So a real mix of experience levels, but they all just brought their A game. Yeah.
yeah, didn't feel that way to me. And I watch I watch a lot of film. One of the things that I also really appreciated about this, and I'm sure this was obviously on purpose, was the fact that there are so many different perspectives and points of view, and those different perspectives and points of view are represented with the different characters in the film. So there's obviously a discussion when these allegations are brought to light, and we've got different mentalities in terms of how to deal with it. So talk to me about the importance of bringing the different points of view to light in the film as well.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons why we did decide to do this with an ensemble cast, because we felt like having 6 characters, 5 of which are the ones sort of dealing with this revelation,
Mhm.
really gave us that opportunity to sort of have these different sides, but also not have it sort of be black and white. Because if we
Mhm.
only had 2 or 3, then it would sort of be like, yes, no, and then would be, yeah, I think more clear cut, which is not what we wanted. And so, yeah, it was really arcing out each individual journey. So we would take, like, we had, cue cards or index cards on the wall, and we really wanted to make sure that even though they were all starting from different places, and we weren't going to have them all, agree at the end. We knew that was never going to work, but we still wanted to see a change or an arc in every single character. So that was
Mhm.
quite difficult to like really find, okay, what are the pieces and what happens to get this person to go from this place to this place.
Okay. Okay, fair. Approximately how long was the shoot?
We were just talking about that. We were shooting exactly a year ago, actually, which is kind
Okay.
of wild. And we did get a little mini shutdown because of COVID, because the
Okay.
restrictions got lifted, and we just, yeah, couldn't avoid it, unfortunately. And so it ended up being basically the month of April, but I think it was only 15 or 16 actual shoot days.
Okay. Okay. Now, how did your training as an intimacy coordinator influence how you directed this film?
Massively. Massively. So I started taking the training because of this film, because I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll be the intimacy coordinator. That'll, save some money.
Hmm.
It could be interesting, and that's
Yeah.
great. And then immediately found out that you absolutely cannot be your own intimacy coordinator. The
Okay.
power dynamic between the actor and the director, or the actor and the producer, it's just so innate that you need a third party who can actually allow that true consent to happen. But I fell in love with the training so much that I continued it on, and I'm so happy to now also get to work as an intimacy coordinator. But I
Hmm.
think in terms of the approach, in terms of directing this, is there were huge sort of core pillars of the intimacy work that we decided to bring into our set, into our
Okay.
production. One of those things was we were going to try and take out the sense of urgency, because urgency leads to oppression, essentially, because you can't be intentional and you can't be considered when things are so urgent. So we decided, when we need to, we're going to empower everyone to say, hey, I need a minute, or we're going to take a break, or we're not going to change the schedule without talking about it first and actually thinking about what ramifications that may have if we pull up this scene, in terms of our actors'
Hmm.
just mental health, essentially, because it becomes such a heavy film. So things like that really changed my approach to the film.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, in terms of like the heaviness of it, obviously we start off and it's a little light, and then and as the film, uh gets going, things get a little more serious. How, as a director, do you control like the moods on set for that? Like how do you deal with your actors as they're going through some very, very serious scenes, but also try, I don't know, do you try to keep it light? Like what's your mentality as a director as you're going through those intense scenes?
I mean, I think probably the key to everything that I work on is sort of flexibility and adaptability. So I had to sort of change my approach literally actor by actor,
Okay.
because not every actor is going to need the same thing, which can be difficult with an ensemble. But it's really, we had conversations individually about what each actor needed or wanted, or how they like to work. We talked about how they were going to be able to do self-care and also aftercare, so what they were going to do ahead of time to protect themselves, but then also what they were going to do afterwards to take care of themselves after the scene. But yeah, we did, group deep breaths. We had dance parties sometimes, but also it's sort of letting our actors do what they need to do for themselves.
Mhm. So, who inspired you to be so good? Like that's my question. Because obviously you're very in touch with the material. Obviously, you had a co-wrote it. You're very in touch with how it's going to affect the people that have to deliver those lines. And every step of the way, it's like you're very much in tune with everything that's going on. And respectfully, I believe this is your first feature.
It is, yeah.
So I asked the question again, Koumbie, how did you get to be so good?
Oh, wow.
Because the level, no, seriously, the level of experience and maturity that you bring to this project, I've come across people who've done multiple projects who don't have these types of things in mind, but here you are, like out the gate. Is it your short film experience that got you to this point? Is it just the research? But it's a difficult
Thank
question
you
to
so
ask.
much.
It's a
Yeah, I'm
it's a difficult question to answer, I should say, not to ask. It's very easy to ask. It's a difficult question to answer, but the question remains, Koumbie, how'd you get to be so good?
oh, I'm gonna remember this moment. I mean, ugh, like I said, I did grow up on sets in a lot of
Okay.
ways. I've put in a number of hours, even just like as a background person on set, and I love the controlled chaos of set. I love the collaboration of set, and so I just love being in that space, and I love watching the pieces moving. So I
Okay.
do think, even though it's my first feature officially, I have put in a lot of hours of observing, of shadowing, of watching, of researching, and doing, as many short films on the weekend as I possibly could.
Okay. Okay. I love it. Now, of course, on tour right now, doing your CFL/Bystanders tour across the country. I love it. And of course, CFL reference because of all the different cities you're going to. What have been some, without giving anything away, of course, what would be some of the common questions that might be coming up during the Q&As that you guys have been hosting?
Oh, um, there are questions about sort of that like accountability piece and what should we do when these things come up. Um, Without giving spoilers, and maybe you'll
Hmm.
know what scene I'm talking about, but there's a scene near the end of the film that has been called controversial. One of our characters does something with another character that
Hmm.
has surprised audiences. So I love getting questions about that because
Okay.
I could talk about it for a long time.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, a lot of questions about how we kept our team. I can't say safe because that's not something that we're able to do, but how we try to take care of each other on set. Yeah, it's just been really great, and honestly, each screening has had sort of a different vibe in terms of the line of questioning. It's been really nice.
Sometimes when directors are asked about their film, they want to keep it, they want to keep it open. They want to, be somewhat vague about it because it's art. Art is very subject to interpretation. Like, is when you're having these questions coming at you, do you want to have to explain, or do you want the audience to try to be able to figure it out on their own?
Um, Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if it's so much about explaining or figuring it out because, as we've said so many times, and Taylor and I have both said that this we just had questions and we put them into a movie. So there actually isn't a ton really to explain because it's kind of the question is in the film, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to certain characters' decisions, I think there's really only one that feels different than what sort of a general audience may understand or accept. And that is the point because we're asking people to say, well, it's really easy to say you're not going to judge a survivor. It's really easy to say you're going to be survivor centered. But then when their actions are different than what you think that they would be or should be, what does that actually look like for you, and how can you actually keep your word and stay judgment free or be understanding and still be supportive because everyone's experience is different, and that's kind of the point.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the time that we've been spending talking about the film. I know you've got things to do, so I want to be respectful of your time. We are going to drift into a little something I like to call rapid fire. Koumbie, this is meant to be nothing but fun. I don't want there should be no beads of sweat on the forehead. This is just a
Okay.
good time. When you're
Okay.
talking to your friends later, you're going to say, "I had the best time talking to Keith from Auto Life magazine doing this rapid fire." Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. First question of rapid fire is always, what is your favorite movie of all time?
You've ruined me already. No, I can't. Ah.
Even if you want to give me like a top three, because I know like finding one out of like the tons of movies that we see is difficult for a lot
I
of
think
people. So even if you want to give me like three off the top, that's fine.
I'm a Libra, so this whole game is going to be very difficult for me. I will say I've gotten it a lot. The references for this film specifically, like the big chill about Alex, the romantics, those sort of ensemble pieces, definitely influenced this film. In terms of like favorite films, I'm a sucker for our local industry, and my partner's first feature is a film called Bone Cage, and I just think it's so beautiful. So I'm going to say that one. It's kind of a cheat, but
That, you know what? That's what gets you like dinner made, and like, that's amazing. Look at you. Nobody's ever taken that angle before. Kubi coming in strong. I like it. Now, of course, you've had experience being in front of and behind the camera. Do you have a preference?
no.
No?
They
Okay.
feel completely different wells inside of my spirit, so I can't even really compare them. They're apples and oranges to me.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Of course, we've talked about this cross country tour. This is wonderful. Such a beautiful country. Has there been any standout moments that you can share during this tour?
We screened at the Mayfair a couple nights ago, and I have to admit I got a little emotional. We lost our independent theater in Halifax a number of years ago, and there was something about sitting at the Mayfair, and it was so nostalgic to me. And there were so many people who came to that screening who I guess had heard about it on the radio or had seen it wherever, and complete strangers. And yeah, it was really meaningful. It was really special for me.
That's amazing. I know I'm on a couple of radio programs each week, and I was talking about it on both. And I was saying, how often do you have an opportunity to see a movie and then have a conversation with the director right after in a Q&A format? So it's fantastic. I love it. Um, okay, now I want to go through your cast. I've been very impressed with your cast. We talked about it. They brought the words that you guys put down to life, and they did a fantastic job. So I'm going to name each cast member, and I want you to think of like a word or a phrase that you think of when you hear that person's name. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds just to get ready for that. And this is exciting. All
Okay,
right.
yeah, I'm not even gonna think about it. We'll
All
see
right,
what
here
happens.
we go. We're starting off with Deborah Castrilli.
So sweet.
Excellent. Cavill Holland.
Uh, Precious.
Okay. Precious. I like that. Katie McCullough.
Fire.
Okay. Your co-writer, Taylor Olson.
My heart.
Nice. Marley Sanson.
So talented. Star.
Okay. And last but not least, Peter Sardi.
Hilarious.
Wonderful, wonderful. I am telling you, for the people who have not seen this movie, you need to. It is so, so incredibly powerful. The last question that I have for you, Koumbie, before I let you get back to your day and enjoy your amazing pink background, we didn't even get to talk about that, but I love it. What is the advice? Because obviously you are killing it at life and especially at filmmaking. What is the advice that you have for emerging filmmakers?
Oh man, if you pump me up this much, I'm gonna be insufferable. My
I
ego
I
can
tell it like it is.
Thank you.
This is our first time meeting, and I'm a good judge of character. I know a big deal when I come across one, Koumbie.
Yes. Okay.
And
Well,
and you're already rocking the one name. I'm just gonna be Keith. Aren't you Keith Whittier, the artist formerly known as Keith Whittier? Just call me
go
Keith.
for it. Try it. I love it. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
For emerging folks, this is mostly just the advice that I'm trying to give myself is just to get out of my own way, and just put your head down and focus on the work as much as
Okay.
possible.
I love that. I appreciate that. I always like asking that question because I know there are a lot of emerging filmmakers that that watch these pieces, and I think it's great to keep it going. And I love the fact that we've got this incredibly wonderful Canadian movie that has Canadian distribution that's being played in Canadian theater. So congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you
Remember,
so much.
yeah, 100%. Remember the name Koumbie. The name of the film is Bystanders. It's playing in theaters right now. Encourage you to go and check it out. Koumbie, thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute honor chatting with you, and I wish you nothing more than nothing but continued success.
Mine as well. It was so nice to meet you and chat. Thank you so much.